Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back. This tutorial is not going to be quite the same as my other tutorials with the stitch counts and the measurements in centimeters and inches. I mostly freehanded this bikini top or crop top from a set of bathers that I already had that I liked the shape of. If you also want to make this top, grab a crop top or bikini top that you like the shape of, and I will show you exactly what I did so that you can do it too. For this project, I used about 50 grams of lightweight cotton yarn, a 3.5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, a darning needle, shirring elastic which is optional, and bathers or a crop top to compare it with when you're making yours. Just to show you first what we're going for with cups, both of the cups are going to be identical and it's going to look like this. So this is all like one row going around in a circle, and then we're adding a little bit to go out into the middle of the chest, and so this is the arm is going to be over here. If you've made bathers before, most of the time this part of the cup is at the bottom and you go straight across the bottom, but I've done it the other way so that kind of this cups the bottom. Comparing that to a pair of bathers that I own, this cup is a little bit bigger than the one I have because I did want it to give me a little bit more coverage than this one has. And we're going to be adding trim around the bottom and around all of the sides. So take that into account. The trim will have gaps in it, so it's not going to be like full coverage, but it will add a little bit more thickness all the way around and around the bottom, and we'll be adding elastic into that as well, just to try and make it as comfortable as possible. So to start off, we're going to make a chain that is this length. Measure it against the top that you already have. So you'll want this to go from the top of where you want your cup to start. So mine's starting all the way up here, and you're going to go to about where your chest is. Once you do a few stitches, it is going to shorten a little bit, but that's what we want. So make this chain right to the peak of your chest from the top, and then when it shrinks a little bit, that'll give us a little bit more room. I'm going to make a slip knot to start, and I'm going to do my chain of 18. So once you've got your chain, you're not going to stitch into that first chain. We're going to use that chain to turn around. So doing a stitch into that second chain from the hook, I'm going to do a single crochet. So to do that, you insert into that second chain from the hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through two, and that's it. So now I'm going to go into the next chain and do another single crochet. So you go all the way down doing single crochets into each of the chains. Into that last stitch, we're going to do 3 single crochets. If you've already done 1 into the last stitch, that's fine, just do 2 more. So we're going to put 3 into this one chain. So I've got 1, I'm going to put another 1, and a third single crochet. Okay, so now we're going to go back down the other side, also putting single crochets. So I've just done my single crochet into that first chain there, so we don't need to do any more into that chain. That's where we have our 3s. So now I'm going to go into that next chain along and put 1 single crochet, and you're just going to keep going all the way down, putting them through both of the strands from the other side of the chain. So now you've got your first row. If you get confused about where that middle stitch is going to be, grab a stitch marker and we'll pop it in now. So you'll just need to count however many chains you did, that's how many stitches you'll need to count now from one side, and put the stitch marker in there. So this one is the top here. So now we're going to do a chain and we're going to turn around and go back the other way. So I'm going to chain 1, turn around, and we're going to put 1 single crochet into every single crochet of that previous row, going all the way around, and we're going to put 3 single crochets into that middle stitch that now has the stitch marker. But all other stitches will be getting just 1 single crochet. So now I've reached that top stitch, so I'm going to put 3 single crochets into that stitch, and we're going to mark the second one, the middle one. So I've got 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and I'll put my stitch marker into that stitch, and then we'll do 1 more single crochet into the top of that stitch. And now back down the other side, putting 1 single crochet into each stitch of the previous row. Okay, so now for The next row, we're going to be starting what we're doing for our repeating pattern for the rest of the V shape of the cup. So all of the rows from here up until we get to this portion over here, so all the way up to here, we're going to be doing the same thing for every row. We're going to be doing a decrease at both of the top sides and the 3 single crochets into that point at the bottom. So now I'm going to chain up 1, turn around, and the first stitches that I'm going to do is a decrease into those first 2 single crochets. So into that first single crochet, I'm going to insert, yarn over, pull through, and I'm going to go straight into that second single crochet, yarn over, pull through, and now I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. So now I'm just going to go down the rest of the row, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch till you get to the point where you're going to do 3 single crochets, and then back up on the other side, we're going to do another decrease, and we're just going to keep doing that every row until you've done as many rows as you need to do. I'm going to be doing 12 rows, and when I've done that, I will show you how it sits on the bather top that I already have. And I'm at the end, so I'm going to put my 3 singles, 2 and 3, putting my stitch marker into that middle one, and back down the other side. So now into those last 2 stitches, I'm going to do another decrease. So go into 1 stitch, into the next, and decrease. So now we chain up 1 and we decrease again straight away. So into those first 2 stitches, I'm going to do another decrease, and now you're just going to keep following this pattern until you have made this part of the cup as wide and as long as you need it to be. Okay, so once you have finished those rows, it'll be looking something a little like this, kind of almost a diamond shape. So it needs to be pretty much the width that you need to cover your boob. It's okay if there's a little bit on the side because we will be putting a trim and we will be covering it a little more, but you do want it to be, you know, covering most of it, I would say. And now we're going to add some more rows, and we're going to bring it out into a bit more of a decrease into the middle, and then when we connect our 2 panels, when we connect our 2 cups together in the middle, it'll give us kind of a band across the front. So to do that, we're going to stop decreasing at the top, and we're going to do some decreases at the bottom instead. So I'm going to insert my hook, we're going to chain up 1, turn around, and we're going to do a single crochet into every stitch all the way down, so no decrease at the top here. This is where we've been doing all the decreases so far, but I'm just going to put 1 single crochet into each stitch, and we'll do a decrease when we get to the point. So now I've almost made it up to the point, and we're not going to stitch into that very pointed stitch. We're going to do a decrease into the previous 2 stitches. So I'm going to do my first part of the decrease into that first stitch, then into that second stitch, and pull through all 3 loops. So we're leaving this very point free, and we're doing a decrease here. Now we're going to chain up 1, turn around, and do another decrease straight away. So decrease again. And now we'll go back up the row, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch until you get to the top. And then we're going to turn around, and we're not doing any decreases at the top, but we're going to keep doing decreases at the bottom of every row. You're going to keep doing this until this section brings it in till it's going to be close enough to join with the other panel to bring it across the front. It will stretch a little bit, so it doesn't need to come all the way to the center of your chest, but you do want it to be close enough that with a little bit of stretching, it'll be in the middle of your chest. So now I'm almost at the end, and I'm going to chain up 1, turn around, and put 1 stitch into every single crochet. So when you get to the end, we'll do those back-to-back decreases again, and then you'll keep going until this section is as wide as it needs it to be. All right, so now into those last 2 stitches, I'm going to do another decrease. We're going to chain up 1, turn around, and do another decrease. All right, so keep going until you have done as many rows as you need to do. Should be looking something a little like this. And now you're going to go ahead and make another one exactly the same, and we're going to connect them together. And I'm just going to cut off a tail and making sure that one of the tails needs to be long enough to weave the two sides together. The other tail doesn't matter so much, you just need to be able to tuck it in. I'm going to grab my darning needle, the end of my yarn, and we're going to line the two cups up together. Doesn't matter which way is inside or out because they will be opposite, but you do want to make sure that one is not upside down. So it'll look like that. So I'm going to put them together just like this, and I'm going to stitch through both loops. So in through both loops of this first stitch on each of the panels, and I'm just going to go all the way down, stitching it together. You can do mattress stitch if you like, but I found that this kind of stitch worked fine for me. So whatever way you prefer to do, you could also use slip stitches and your hook if you wanted to. It will just leave a little ridge in the middle, but you could put that on the inside so it won't matter too much. Cool. So then it will look like that on the inside, and we can start adding our trim and the back section so that we can make this into a proper set of bathers. So adding on some straps to go around my back from the cup, I just marked off where I wanted the straps to start, making sure that it's the same on both sides. So I measured it out on one side and then I've transferred it over to the other side. And so now I'm going to switch over to doing double crochets, which is the same as the bottom of the bathers, to kind of tie that back in. So I'm going to grab the end of my yarn, make a slip knot, insert my hook, and I'm going to join on where one of those stitch markers is. So slip stitch to join. Just going to pull through and pull through again. Okay, so now to be the height of a double crochet, I'm going to chain up 3. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and that's going to count as my first double crochet. And now I'm just going to put 1 double crochet into all of the ends of the stitches and the tops of the rows when I get there. And you just want to make sure that you do the same number of stitches that you did on the other side. I did 12, so I'm going to make sure that I do 12 on this side as well. And my last stitch into where that second stitch marker is. That's right there. Okay, so now I'm going to chain up 3 again to be the height of double crochet, and not stitching into that first stitch because the chain 3 counts as a stitch. I'm going to go into that second stitch from the hook and continue down, and I'm just going to put 12 double crochets back and forth until I've made this section as long as I want it. And for me, that was to make it a little bit less than halfway across my back because I'll be adding trim all the way around and then tying it up, so it didn't need to meet in the middle. But you can make it as long or as short as you want it to be, depending on how much of a crisscross you want in the back. One option would also be to make these sections really, really long and then just use them to tie in a knot around the back of your back as well, rather than doing the other trim with the smaller straps, just like having one big strap that you tie in a bow. I finished the back straps for my top, and now I'm just going to put some trim around it to match the bottoms to kind of tie it all together. So to do that, I'm going to start off by going down here and then around the bottom of the cups. So I'm going to chain up 5. So that's 5 chains for counting as my first double crochet, and then 2 chains for the gap. And now I'm just going to put 1 double crochet into every row of my double crochets until I get up here and that's going to be approximately the same width as the 2 chains. So I'm going to put one into that next row, and then chain 2, and then 1 double crochet into that next row, and keep going all the way down. So now I'm at the base of the cups, and I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. This one's going to be a little bit more trying to work out where the best spot to put my next stitch is, but I'm just going to try and do it approximately the same distance apart. Obviously going into these stitches is a lot easier because I can just skip 2, but that's not going to be the case around here where the rows of single crochets are. So I'm just going to try and space them out as evenly as possible. And when the top is pulled tight, it won't be as noticeable, especially because you can add elastic in if you need to, if it's a little bit gapey. And I'm just going to keep going all the way around until I get back to the start, and then I'm going to add straps. You could build the straps in as you go, and I wanted to do that at first, but I decided that if I messed up the straps, I'd have to undo all of the trim just to redo the length of the straps. So I think it's easier to just attach the straps on after, so then if there's any issues, you can just take off the straps and redo them. So that's my plan. Now I've finished the trim going all the way around my top, and for the corners I just did a chain 5 to give that sort of corner look. And I thought a lot about how I wanted to add the straps, but I've decided that I'm going to add 1 strap to the top of each of the cups, and then I'm going to make that strap really long and use it to weave in between the backs of the top to kind of secure it in place. So instead of doing like a separate strap here and then a separate tie here, it's all going to be the one, but that also means that it has to be really long. So I'm going to attach each one to that joint. So this is where the chains were when we did the cups. So I'm just going to attach on above the top of that chain on both of the cups, trying to center it as much as I can to this chain, not necessarily to the stitches in the trim. So I'm just going to grab the end of my yarn and make a slip knot, insert my hook, and I'm going to join on above that chain. You could also do the strap separately, like have it be a chain and then the only row, which is going to be double crochets and 2 chain gap in between, the same as the trim, but I'm just going to attach it on to begin with. So I'm just going to slip stitch, and I'm going to do a very long chain, long enough to go all the way over my shoulders, and then tie up the back. So better to make it too long in this situation. I mean, you can always add to it later, but I'm just going to make it super, super long, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do for the next row, and then that's going to be it for the straps. So I've got a really long chain now, and I kind of just measured that on myself. If you also want the double crochets and chained 2 to line up, then you could make sure that you do this section in a group of 3 plus 1, but I'm just going to risk it and make it work when I get closer to the top. So just like with the trim, I'm going to chain up 5 to count as my first double crochet and the first 2 chains. It's got 5, and now I'm going to do a double crochet into that 3rd chain along, because this first one is going to be where because this is the base of our first stitch. We're skipping 2 chains, and I'm doing a double crochet into the 3rd chain from where we started. So in total, you'll have 7 chains going around the end before your first double crochet. So that'll just give the end a look like that. And now I'm going to chain up 2, skip 2 chains, 1 and 2, and double crochet into that 3rd chain along. Okay, so now I'm going to skip 2 chains, chain up 2, and now skip 2 chains, and into that 3rd chain along, do a double crochet. Alright, so now I'm just going to go down the rest of the row, repeating that pattern, and that's all it's going to be for the strap. When I get back up to the top, I'm going to just join it on with the other side of my trim, and that'll be it, and I'm going to do that on the other side as well. So I've made it up to the end, and I've got 4 chains left, and I'm just going to skip over 2 like normal, put a double crochet into that second last chain, and then I'm going to do 1 more chain and going to join on to the other side of the trim, and then cut a tail and weave in my ends, and then I'm going to go and do the exact same thing over on the other side. I've just tried on my top. Being able to tie it up means that it fits very well, except it's a little bit not as secure under my bust as I want it to be. So I'm just going to grab some elastic. This is very thin shirring elastic. You could also use hat elastic if you can't get the shirring elastic, but typically shirring elastic is pretty cheap from the craft store. It's just a bit thinner, but still quite stretchy. So I'm going to put that on my darning needle, and I'm just going to weave it in on both the trim and on the actual top under the bust. I'm just going to go up to the 2 corners. That's kind of the only place that I need it. You could do it along the whole bottom of the top if you wanted to though. So I'm just going to start in here, and I'm just going to weave it in along the bottom, trying to go through stitches if I can to make it not visible from the front side. But because it is such a thin elastic, it's not going to be super noticeable, and I'm hoping that nobody's going to be looking that close at the underside of my bust anyway. So I've made it all the way to the other end, and you can kind of see it on the underside, but on the front side can't really see it. Instead of cutting off this piece of elastic and having 2 tails that I have to tie, I'm just going to continue it on to the other part of the trim as well. So I'm just going to go up this double crochet up to where the chains are, and now I'm just going to go back along all the chains, trying to do what I did for the other part, trying to make it as less visible on the front side as I can, but if it's a little bit visible, I don't really mind. Maybe you won't need the elastic, so if you don't, then that's great if you can tie it tight enough. But if you need extra support, you could also do a row of single crochets around the bottom of the trim and attach the elastic into that. If you want to see how to do that, check out the video of the bather bottoms when that comes out, because that's what I did around the waist. And it did make it more secure, and I used a hat elastic so that that was also a bit more secure. Just depending, like if you have a bigger bust, you may need to do that. I can include a little bit of that video in here actually to make it easier. So I've just finished going around, and now I'm just going to try on, pull the elastics as tight as they need to be, and then I'm going to tie it in a knot and weave it in, and that's going to give me a little bit more support. This is the back side, so you can see the elastic, and then this is the front side where it's not as visible. If you have a bigger bust and you want to do the version with the single crochets wrapping around a thicker elastic like a hat elastic, then I'm putting that footage in right now. Here's an excerpt from the bather bottoms to show you what I mean by stitching over the elastic and incorporating it in. In that last row where I've got all of my trim, I've just put a row of single crochets where I'm capturing that elastic to hold it tight, and that is a stronger elastic, so it will hold it tighter if that's what you need. And after you've done that, then your top will be finished. Just need to weave in all of those ends. So I just wanted to show you how to put it on in case it was a bit confusing. So I've got the straps coming from the shoulders here, and then I've just done the crisscross in the back loose. I'm just going to slip it on like this, and then from the back I'm going to pull the cords tight. If you didn't make your straps quite as long as you needed to and you're worried about when you put it on they're going to come out of this, you could put in a stitch marker. Otherwise you could extend your straps to make sure that they don't get too annoying and come loose. Once I pull it tight, I'll have plenty of strap to tie up, but it's just the getting on part. So I'm just going to slip it on pull the cups to where I want them to be, and then turning around, you can see I've got my little toggles here, and I'm just going to pull them tight and then tie them in a bow, making it as tight as I need it to be, making sure that the shoulder straps are tight enough and as even as you can make them. You could also stitch how tight you want the shoulder straps to be, stitch it to that first hole, and then after that you just weave it in, and so then when you're pulling it tight, you're only going to be pulling this section here tight. You won't be affecting the shoulder straps if you want them to be stuck at a specific length. But this is good because it means when you're making it, you don't need to know exactly what length you need. So I'm just going to pull it tight, tie it into a bow, and there we go. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, leave them below and I will see if I can help you out. See you in the next one.